All right, welcome back to the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro rolling in on a Friday. Glad you could join us. Also streaming live on the Vegas Take YouTube page, as always. And wanted to talk a little bit about our very good friend Biff, also known as Donald Trump Jr. So
yes, let's talk about him, Brian. I'm ready.
He made this appearance on The View. But before I get to that, I want to read a quote that Donald Trump made about his visit to Arlington National Cemetery, where so many of our fallen heroes are laid to rest. This is a quote about visiting Arlington National Cemetery. This is absolute verbatim. Quote, "As we drove past the rows of white grave markers, I also thought of all the attacks we'd already suffered as a family and about all the sacrifices we'd have to make to help my father succeed. Are you effing kidding me?" He is comparing death, heroes that have risked their lives and lost their lives at Arlington National Cemetery, to making media appearances and tweeting.
Yes, to Twitter wars.
That is what Donald Trump Jr. is doing. First of all, he's a moron.
He actually did just do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is, number one, he is a moron. And number two, his own father is the one that did not serve, claimed he had bone spurs. We all know that was a lie. But explain this to me. I want anybody, and I mean anybody, I don't care how far to the right you are, I don't care how big of a Trump supporter you are, anybody on the right, please defend that quote. I'm going to read it one more time because I think it's very important. I've said it all along that this guy, Donald Trump, I don't talk about Eric Trump very much, but Don Jr. is more active on social media, and Don Jr. says dumb things like his father does on a regular basis. In regards to his Arlington National Cemetery visit, as we drove past the rows of white grave markers, I also thought of all the attacks we'd already suffered as a family and about all the sacrifices we'd have to make to help my father succeed. What is he talking about? The campaign rally? First of all, to any normal human being, I don't care. Hold on. I don't care if you're on the right or the left. To any normal, decent human being, you drive past Arlington National Cemetery, at least for me, the first thing that I would think about, I'd be very emotional, and I would think about all those heroes, all those great people that risk their lives every day, the ones that are still with us, and those that have lost their lives. And I would feel a great honor just to be there, to salute these fallen soldiers. I wouldn't think about any personal sacrifices that I've made in my life. In fact, that's the last thing that I would think about would be me. The first thing Donald Trump Jr. thought about when he was at Arlington National Cemetery was about him. Make no mistake about it. That's what this quote is all about. And if you don't believe me, it's in Business Insider, an interview he did with Business Insider. The first thing Don Jr. thinks about is himself. And by the way, I recall an interview that Donald Trump Jr. did with Laura Ingraham a few feet away from these graves. He wasn't talking about the soldiers. He was also talking about himself and the Democrats and how they're attacking him on a regular basis. Really, I asked this question. What kind of person are you? What kind of human being are you? I'm sure Don Jr. isn't the first person to, but certainly I haven't seen anyone publicly talk like that. Visiting Arlington National Cemetery, one of the holiest of holy places of fallen heroes that have lost their lives for our freedoms. And the first thing that Don Jr. thinks about is the actual sacrifices he had to make for his father to succeed. Make no mistake about it, Don Jr. has done nothing in his life. He's made no real sacrifices in his life. Him and, I guess you could call it a sacrifice, hanging out with Kimberly Guilfoyle. That would be a sacrifice, But, I mean, other than that, what sacrifices has Don Jr. made in his life? Seriously, this is disgusting, and nobody can defend it. So Don Jr. made his appearance on The View with Guilfoyle yesterday, and he was asked why he wanted to release the name of the whistleblower. And here's his response to that right here.
The whistleblower's name was on a little website called DrudgeReport a couple of days ago. It was in Real Clear Politics. I literally quote tweeted an article that had the guy's name in the title of the article. So that whole thing is nonsense, but I wish the outrage would be equal. I mean, there was no outrage when, my family got an exploding letter of, with white powder substance in it. They're protecting a guy, in the CIA, and there's great outrage, but when your family gets something, it's there. And that's a big part of the book, which is, it's not a level playing field in terms of outrage. We do live in an outrage culture.
Okay, first of all, in regards to white powder, why don't we talk about CNN? Okay, was he outraged when a Donald Trump supporter sent white powder to CNN? First of all, he likes to deflect and he likes to pivot because he can't defend the fact that he is the son of the President of the United States releasing the name of the whistleblower.
I think that's a pretty big deal that his family did receive a letter with poisonous white powder in it, though. You can't discount that,
But
Brian.
it has
that's a pretty big deal.
But it has absolutely zero and nothing to do with the question that was asked. And the question that was asked is, why did you release the name of the whistleblower? And his response is, well, the Drudge Report released it, so I released it. And then he says, well, I'm just a regular everyday citizen. No, you're not. You're the son of the President of the United States, and it is disgraceful. And even Kimberly Guilfoyle, his girlfriend, who was sitting next to him, agreed that it was a very bad decision. So Don Jr. also says that people are upset about outing the whistleblower because he has ties to Joe Biden, but Huntsman disagrees. Here's the cut on that.
Just to be clear, that's not why I'm outraged. I'm outraged because I care about diplomacy in this country. I care about how we protect the people when they see a wrongdoing, that they go through the proper political channels, and they are protected for doing that. So you can say that whatever outlet released it.
Let's not kid ourselves.
But the name has been out there for 5 days.
But that doesn't make it right.
But nevertheless,
But Abby, you guys, ABC is right now chasing down a whistleblower about all of the Epstein stuff because those stories were killed. So if we're going to have the conversation about the outrage about whistleblowers, you work with CBS stuff. You work with CBS to out a whistleblower who came up with a story that's kind of shady.
This is not CBS.
No, but you work with them. That broke this morning.
It's amazing to me that when you bring up a subject that somebody does not want to talk about and there's no defense for it, they deflect and they talk about something completely different. Epstein had absolutely nothing to do with the question, but this is what Don Jr. does, and that's why he's sitting there with his girlfriend, because he can't defend himself by himself. He also was asked, see, this is my biggest issue with this. We all make mistakes. Don Jr. makes a lot of mistakes. His father makes a lot of mistakes, but we all make mistakes, right? We're all not perfect. So when Don Jr. is just asked for show a little bit of humility and be honest, he's asked if he regrets outing the whistleblower. Here's his response to that.
I don't think I should have to forego my First Amendment right. I didn't want to create hysteria, but if I'm reading an article, be like, oh, the name's out there. I didn't even realize that this thing's some sort of big sort of secret.
You don't regret doing that?
I don't regret doing it. No, I don't think I should have to forego my First Amendment rights. It's out there. I read it in an article. I've been reading it for a week. I saw it on the Drudge Report. Like, this is not some secret, but to then say, because it's Donald Trump Jr., because he's an outspoken guy, to then create why was there no outrage when Drudge Report, which is a major website, probably the largest aggregator of media news in America, he puts it out there a few days ago, and no, crickets, no problem with that.
Because probably not a lot of people knew that it was out there, but once you put it out,
but millions of people see Drudge a day.
I'm saying to you, listen, man, I don't know how many people here read the Drudge Report. I don't know, but I'm saying a lot more people know your name than know the Drudge Report. You're assuming. I know it's a fair point.
Let's move on.
All right, so there you go. Typical in Don Jr. or Trump fashion, where if they make a mistake or do something wrong, they never apologize for it. That's a playbook from Donald Trump, our president of the United States.
Is that a mistake, though, Brian?
Absolutely, 100%.
He doesn't hold office. Drudge Report released the name.
He's the son of the president of the United States, and many Republicans disagree with you.
He didn't dox anybody. He released the name that was already out there.
He's the son.
I don't have an issue with that. I mean, it'd be the same as retweeting something.
No, it's not. He's the son of the president of the United States. He's not an everyday citizen. Everybody knows who Don Jr. is.
But this wasn't private information. This was public.
There is a
It was
reason.
already on the internet, on a major outlet.
So just because something is public, even though it might be inappropriate, you think it's okay for the son of the president of the United States to retweet it. You're totally okay with it. Well, listen, if somebody writes something about your family, and it wasn't me, and I hope that never happened, but if somebody writes something negative about something personal to you, and it may or may not be true, but it's out there, and then I decide to go on my social media page, and by the way, I'm not the president, but as your friend, I retweet it. Wouldn't you have a problem with me retweeting it? And my defense to you is, well, you know what, JD, hold on, it was already out there, so I just retweeted it, so I didn't do anything wrong. No, you would have a problem with me.
That analogy you just made would assume that Donald Trump Jr. and the whistleblower are friends, and that is not the case, Brian.
It's the same thing, though.
It's not even remotely close to the same thing.
Just because it's a retweet.
How is Donald Trump Jr. loyal to the whistleblower?
You don't understand the point I'm trying to make.
You have loyalty to me. I have loyalty to you. Under those circumstances, that would be totally different.
Okay, the son has a loyalty to the country. His father is the president of the United States. If you want to talk about loyalty, the Trump family should have loyalty to what is best for the country, not as what's best for their father. And the reason why I bring up Twitter and the reason why I bring up retweeting is this reason. Just because you didn't put it out there, but you retweeted it, doesn't mean it's fair game, and it doesn't mean it's right. If you want to talk about loyalty, how about all the constituents? How about everybody, Republicans and Democrats?
And again, Brian, I would have a large issue if he got if it was a private information, it was not public. He had an in the government that happened to the whistleblower, and he released it. But since it was already on a public platform, I have no problem, and he has every single right to retweet or post a link to another site that already released the information.
To me,
whether or not he's the president's son or not,
we're not talking
there's
about.
There's nothing wrong with that, Brian.
We're not talking about legalities. I completely disagree with you when you say there's nothing wrong with it. There is something wrong with that. It's beyond inappropriate for the son of the president of the United States to do that.
It is not inappropriate at all, Brian.
So
because, again, it is public knowledge already. It is on a public platform already. And the Drudge Report gets like 30 million visitors a day.
First of all,
Donald Trump Jr. has 4 million Twitter followers. Whether people know who he is or not, he only has 4 million following him.
First of all, it is inappropriate, and there are a reason why there are laws and rules put in place to protect
There's
the whistleblower.
absolutely no law put in. If that's the case, then Drudge Report should get sued for $200 million for releasing the name in the first place. And if that happens, and Donald Trump is complicit in that, then fine. But
have you ever heard of?
Again, it's totally different since it was already public knowledge. It was already on a public platform, a large digital platform.
Here's what you don't
understand. And he decided, I understand it entirely, Brian.
Okay, so what's the law?
It's not a private situation.
So what's the law when it comes to whistleblowers? Do you understand the laws that are put in place?
Okay, if that's the case, then what's going to happen to Drudge Report? What are Drudge Report's consequences?
I'm asking you a question.
Releasing
Do you know
their
what
name?
the laws are when it comes to whistleblowers? Because if we're talking about this, I think you need to know what the law is. Do you know what the law is? Do you know what the Whistleblower Act is?
The Whistleblower Act?
Yes.
What is it, Brian?
The name cannot be released to protect that person's safety.
Okay, so then what's going to happen to Drudge Report for releasing the name?
I don't know what's going to happen to Drudge Report, but what I do know is when this is in place and you are the son of the president of the United States, you have to understand what the laws are.
You're just twisting and spinning. The point is,
I'm not spinning anything.
The only person that should be liable for this is Drudge Report. Donald Trump took something that was already public information on a digital platform and decided to paste or retweet it or
and
whatever.
you're okay with that decision.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
And you're okay with that decision.
I would be much less okay with it if it wasn't public.
I cannot believe you're okay with the decision of the son of the president of the United States retweeting something that could certainly harm who this man or woman is. 257-5396 is the number to call. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Joel. Joel, you're next on the Vegas Take. What do you think about all this?
What's up, Joel?
Well, hi. Fact of the matter is the Whistleblower Act says that you cannot reveal the name of the whistleblower, period. So whether or not Drudge did it first or whether or not Donnie Jr. did it second, it's moot. It's like, okay, you rob a bank and then I go in right after you and I rob the bank. Does that make my robbery less terrible than yours?
That's a good point. I agree. Yeah.
So, and that Donnie knew what was going on. The fact of the matter is Donnie Jr. knew that when he retweeted that, it was going to cause a furor.
Of course he did.
To suggest that he was ignorant of that fact is just being blind.
Well, I would suggest
to make excuses for Don Jr. is incompetent and it's just childish.
Yeah, and I would make the argument he is ignorant, but you're probably right. He was not ignorant to the fact.
I'm not making any excuse. I'm just saying if it was private information that Don Jr. himself unearthed, that would be totally different in my eyes. Yeah. And my biggest problem with that whole interview with The View is the Arlington Cemetery part of it. Because it makes it seem like he believes that his family's going to suffer casualties due to the fact that his president is being attacked by the media, et cetera, et cetera. That to me, that's indefensible. But retweeting or copy and pasting something that was released on a massive digital platform, I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Let's take one more call here. Let's go to George. George, what do you think about all this?
What's up, George?
Well, I'm just a little confused. I was just trying to call with like a question / maybe a statement. I mean,
sure.
Mark Levin, I know you guys know, you've had him on there. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy. Basically went line by line, basically breaking down the fact why this guy doesn't even qualify as a whistleblower. And I'm just trying to, and I caught the tail end of it, but I've heard some other people make that statement.
Let me comment on that. That's George. That's very fair. So let's talk about this for a second. First of all, Mark Levin came on our show. We were both very respectful to one another, and I do respect him, even though I disagree with almost everything he does. There's a reason why he gets monster ratings, because he does a good show, and I respect him a great deal. With that being said, I can't remember the last time he ever said anything negative about the Trump family. He always goes after the media, and he goes after the left, never goes after the right. So keep that in mind. That's number one. Number two, when he says the whistleblower isn't immune That's not necessarily true. Now, he can be cross-examined eventually if they get to that point, but there's a reason why the Whistleblower Act is in place, and I'm sure he didn't talk about the Whistleblower Act because it doesn't fit his narrative. There are reasons why the Whistleblower Act was put into place, not just by Democrats, but also by Republicans. That's very important to note that. And the reason is to protect his identity, to protect him and his family. And make no mistake about it, the only reason why the President of the United States wants this name to be thrown out there is they could throw mud on this guy. Now they're going after his attorney. Whether his attorney is a Democrat or not has absolutely nothing to do with whether he's telling the truth or not. And by the way, even if we do find out who the whistleblower is, it still has no bearing over all the evidence and all the testimony that's already been put into place, George. That's the best way I can put it out there, and I apologize, George. We have to go to break. I appreciate the phone call. It's a very fair question. And by the way, I mean that. I do respect Mark Levin a lot. The only thing that I don't understand is why he doesn't take calls that disagree with him. When was the last time he took somebody that disagreed with him, a caller? We welcome anybody to call into the show, agree or disagree. I appreciate the fact that Mark Levin came on our show, and I would absolutely welcome him to come on again. Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. He is Mr. X, the Hollywood conservative, a Trump supporter in Hollywood. That's right. He's coming up next.